Broadcasting Networks presents Coach Talk Radio. Create the time, money, and lifestyle you want with tips, tricks, and techniques that get you started today from some of the best internet minds in the business. Now, here is your host, internet brand strategist, Sandra Beck.
Hey guys and dolls, this is Sandra Beck, and I'm here with Scott Lopez, and we are visiting today about mental toughness, mental fitness, and this is something I had to learn. I think we're born with a certain level of mental toughness. I think we acquire it and get better with age, better with time, and I think adversity and all those things that knock us down, when we get back up again, we build mental toughness. Now, I'd like to introduce you to Scott. He's been on the show before, but for those of you who haven't met him before, Scott, welcome to the show.
I am super excited to be here. Thank you.
Scott, tell us a little bit about your background, because you have a very unique background, especially for somebody who, you're a radio host, you're a money guy, you're a former pilot, you're always a Marine. These things are all things that toughen you up. Were you a tough kid?
You know, I was a welfare kid, and my parents were divorced when I was 2.5 years old. I grew up with a single mom who moved me around quite a bit before I lived with my dad. And I think between like 3rd grade and 8th grade, I went to 5 different schools, maybe 6. So I don't think I was that much of a tough kid. I was a kid that had to adjust to a lot of different situations. So it's been a process, really, a lifelong journey for me to get tough, right? To get tough mentally, get tough physically, and I think the get tough part is really just believe in myself. To have confidence, to be able to handle adversity and still perform under pressure and the things that life throws you.
Well, I know, I always thought of myself as this giant goofball. I like to read. I'd read my romance novels. I'd float in my lake, and, everything was sunny, warm, and wonderful. But I started playing hockey with my brothers when I was young, and I realized, there was this fire in me, like a jet engine, that didn't like to lose. And I wasn't a poor loser, but I didn't like to lose. And I would throttle it forward as much as I could, to win. And whatever I was doing, whether it was a grade, whether it was playing hockey with my brothers just to keep up, all those things, I think, shaped me. But when I went through my first big epic failure in life, I had a company that failed, and that was really hard for me, because I think you've got to have tools to fail successfully. And I took a lot of lumps that first failure, and I've had subsequent failures since, but I think I had the belief set after my first big failure that I could just rally. I could just, whatever it is, I'm not going to die. I won't be dead tomorrow. And if I am, well, too bad, so sad. But there are tools to being tough. There are tools to being resilient. There are tools to being successful after failure.
It really becomes a mindset issue. I think it's really how you look at life, and whether it's a self-responsibility, self-acceptance. I'm in charge of myself. However, excuse me. Or are you a victim, right? You just take what life gives you and feel sorry for yourself. So I think it's the first big part of it is, are you a victim, or are you somebody who takes charge and takes self-responsibility? That's the first big part of it. The second part of it is, how do you look at failure? Do you look at every situation as a win, or do you look at it as an opportunity to learn something and improve? Because if you look at your adversity in life as an opportunity to improve, then there is no failure, right? There's only lessons learned.
Yeah, I think I'm a little slow on the uptake. With the lessons learned. And I think I needed to feel sorry for myself for a little bit. I couldn't switch gears. I'm not an 18-wheeler that can switch gears from 1, to 2 really quickly. And I agree with you, getting out of victim mode as quickly as possible, because when you get stuck in victim mode, or you get stuck in, that analysis paralysis, which I see a lot of my friends doing, they go bananas over the why. And, the why is pretty good if you want to learn from your mistakes, but it doesn't get you from point A to point B faster. And that's one of the hard lessons I had to learn was, the why changes with new information, the why. And most of the time, the why doesn't even matter. Why did this happen? Why did this happen to me? Why? You could spend a lifetime exploring why, and it would always change.
It's a great point. And I think it's back to perspective and mindset. One of the things that I see in society at large is that very few people actually take self-responsibility. And how do we know that? Well, we just look at the results of most of the people in life. I think most people underperform, right? We're not taught to be self-responsible. We're taught to look at big government, or we're taught to look at society as taking care of us, or, we have this entitlement attitude. We want it now. We don't know how to work for things, and we get upset when we don't get them right away. We're impatient. It is a philosophy of wisdom and achievement that self-responsibility, be persistent, take your time, focus on improvement, and your results will get there. You just don't see that. You just don't see that at large, though. I mean, would you agree with that? I know. When I was growing up, a lot of people didn't tell me about self-responsibility. I didn't really learn that until I started to get into high school sports, or maybe some of the extracurricular activities where I was graded on my performance, just my performance only.
Well, see, my dad was Navy, Scott, and you had to straighten up and fly right. Your room needed to be ship shape. Like, I could go all day with, these military things. My dad would wake me up going, it's time to get up, it's time to get up, it's time to get up in the morning. And he was all about self-responsibility, so much so that I took it the opposite effect. I took it on that everything was my responsibility. There was no victim mentality in our household. If you got knocked down, you got up. If you failed a test, you went in and talked to the teacher, you redid it, you did whatever you needed to do to succeed. And I think as a result, my brothers and sisters and I have all become very successful in the world, but we've also become really tough, and we don't teach our kids toughness today. At least I don't see it, and I'm not going to get into every kid gets a medal, every kid gets a trophy. I've beat that horse ad nauseum. But when you don't know how to fail, when you don't know how to lose, and I think of my son's third grade teacher, Mrs. Woolman, she called me one day and she said, I'm really worried about Max because he doesn't know how to fail. And now this is in third grade. And she's like, he's tall, he's athletic, he's smart, he's funny. She goes, I'm going to give him a test, and I'm purposely going to give him something that he will not be able to do. And she's like, I want you to work with him the steps of failure. And this was really important because, Scott, we don't like our kids to fail in this generation. We want to comfort them and, pad them. And, who gets a trophy for 9th place? I just had to slide that in. If you're 9 out of 10,000, it's one thing. But, when you're 9 out of 9, you do not get a trophy or a ribbon or a participation medal, because everybody wants to soften the blow. We don't need to soften the blow. We need to teach children and ourselves what to do when the blows come, because they will.
Well, what about 2 points to that? And I'm in full agreement with you. What about a graduation ceremony for kids, going from kindergarten to 1st grade, or a graduation ceremony from going from, 6th grade to 7th grade? I didn't have a graduation ceremony. It wasn't, gowns and caps. It was just like, okay, we're done with school. You're on to the next thing. I think it's interesting.
You're so polite. I'm just going to say it's stupid. When my kids finished preschool, they did this graduation. You would have thought the Pope was coming to town. There were flowers, there were cupcakes, there were all this stuff. My kid's 4. He doesn't know what's going on. Give him a balloon or some, what's that stuff you blow bubbles with? But all of that celebration is for the parents, but it is damaging to our kids because not every benchmark gets a celebration. Scott, if you worked for me, I will not give you a hug and a flower in your paycheck. You get your paycheck, you go home, you do your thing, whatever, and maybe you get a job well done if you're lucky.
Well, it's the psychology of motivation and psychology of leadership. And I think there is, I think I don't want to say this. Being a professional means giving it your best no matter what the situation is, right? And you are definitely a professional. There is a time when we need to inspire people because, human beings do have emotions and we want to bring out the best in them and we want them to take ownership and we want them to do their best when we're not there. So there is kind of a little bit of a balance. And I think this is when we can get into a little bit of the woo-woo part of heart-centered leadership and, leadership by example. I'll go to bat for you. I've got your back. And when I'm not there, hopefully you'll have my back as well. But when we're talking about adversity, when we're talking about mental toughness, let's talk about a timely topic, which is Hurricane Harvey. Can you imagine, hundreds of thousands of people within the period of just a couple of days just had their homes washed away? They're out of they're not back to the third world almost, right? They're living in high school gyms or got old people in nursing homes, floating away on TV. I saw that on TV. I couldn't believe it. So what do you think about just how fast life can hit you with adversity, and whether it's natural disasters or it can be personal things? But what do you think about Hurricane Harvey and the people of Houston and South Texas and how they've handled that?
Well, I think it's a good lesson for all of us that all this stuff is just stuff. At the end of the day, you look at what people grabbed most: their pets, their children, their family members. They weren't trying to lug a couch out. They weren't trying to get their BMW out of the driveway, at least not what I saw in the news. But I think it boiled us down to what's really important in life and what matters. And, I feel bad for these people because it's brutal what they went through. But at the end of the day, it's all stuff. And I think that we all have to focus on what are we going to take with us beyond the stuff? What are we going to take with us to our next house, to our next adventure, to our next failure? What comes with us? Because your BMW, your couch, your, Rolex watch doesn't come with you. Only you and what you've built internally, you can guarantee comes with you. I'm here today with Scott Lopez. This is Coach Talk Radio. We're talking about mental toughness, mental fitness. What does it take to succeed? Anybody can succeed once. What does it take to succeed again and again? We'll be exploring this after the break.
A recording of our own voice, it always sounds different than we think. This is because the bones in our skull create a resonance from within that makes our voice sound deeper to us. But our recorded voice is how others hear us. I'm sure I'm not the first person who has uttered the words, "I really don't sound like that." Do I? Margaret Thatcher famously underwent vocal training to lower her voice and make her sound more statesmanlike. Recently, British Airways polled Americans and Britons to see who they believed had the sexiest voices. Morgan Freeman was voted #1. If a judge loves the sound of his own voice, expect a long sentence. What's a word for a person who loves to hear the sound of their own voice? A philodox. It's words you never heard. I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
With our busy lives, it's so easy to skip breakfast. For me, breakfast is my least favorite meal of the day. And if I didn't know better, I would omit it, but I don't. Eat this, not that. Reports that studies show that people who take time for a morning meal consume fewer calories over the course of the day, have stronger cognitive skills, and are 30% less likely to be overweight or obese. On top of that, people who skip breakfast are more likely to drink alcohol and smoke, and they're less likely to exercise. The key is to choose a breakfast that works for you and not against you. Select low-fat yogurt, oatmeal, whole grain cereal with skim milk, or a fresh apple with almond butter. Choose a healthy breakfast and don't forget to exercise. For the Fitness Minute, I'm Annette Hammond.
Hey guys and dolls, this is Sandra Beck and I'm here with Scott Lopez and we're talking today about mental fitness, mental strength, mental toughness. What I found in my life, Scott, is that if you don't have the mental game taken care of, you're almost dead in the water. When my mom died, when I went through a foreclosure, went through a divorce, all these things happened to me within a calendar year. It was like being knocked over by the ocean. Like, I'd just get on my feet and it would knock me over again. And, I'd step up again and knocked over again. And, this happened over a period of about 18 months till everything really resolved itself. And for a while there, I went into the turtle and didn't know what to do. But then you pull on your core strengths, which is, what can I do today to get me to where I want to be? And I wish I had some great, like, Albert Einstein quote. That was actually from the Lego Ninjago series. I was watching it with my kids one night, sitting up in my big bed, and we used to watch Ninjago. We'd watch Star Wars, whatever. And this Sensei Wu comes on, and he's like, he stood up in front of the TV, and he's like, focus on what you can do today to get you to where you want to be. And just imagine this little Lego figurine. And it was like this like bright light shined and the angels sang. And it's like, that's it. I'm going to focus on what I need to do today to get me to where I want to be. And I've held on to that statement for like 18 or now maybe 9 years. I even have Sensei Wu in my office because when I look at him, that little Lego figurine, I think about what can I do today to get me to where I want to be, because you have to stay present. If you are in crisis mode, if you have to be mentally tough, you have to put 90% into the present and 10% into what's coming next and nothing in the past.
There's so many things that we can talk about right there. It's very good. What is mental toughness? Just the definition. In my mind, it's performance under pressure, adversity, criticism, rejection. When everything is, on top of you, how do you perform at the highest levels? And being in the moment, staying connected to your breath, right? I mean, this is very important. Being able to breathe, whether we're doing public speaking, whether we're doing an athletic event, whether we're talking to customers, whether we're doing a radio show, being present and breathing, connects us back to our heart, right? And if we get into a spiritual perspective, that connects us back to the universe and God, and which is where we're all at our most strongest and grounded and present. When you see somebody like Michael Jordan, go or Kobe Bryant or LeBron James go off for 80, 90, 100 points in a game and they just can't miss, and they're in the zone, that's performance under pressure, right? That's performance, they're breathing, and there's nothing that they can't do wrong because they're completely connected. And I think that's because they've prepared. I think that they've put in the time, the training, they know their stuff, whether it be their athletic abilities or their mental abilities, their physical, their emotional. They've got a dream, a goal, and they've prepared. So no matter what happens, they are confident, they can rise to the occasion, and they're ready to go. So I think preparation is a big part of it. I think breathing is a big part of it. And I think just having the big picture perspective of knowing things are probably going to go wrong. That's life. Be ready for it. Don't get blindsided. And most things that would derail the masses are not going to derail you or our listeners.
Well, and, we talk about breathing. I just want to go back to breathing for a second because, many years ago when I first became aware of like Foursquare breathing, things like that, I thought, well, this is just so dumb. Like, I can breathe. I've been breathing since I was a baby. But the fact of the matter is when we get stressed, we don't breathe. We hold our breath all day long and we're reducing our oxygen load in our brain. We're making our heart pound harder. All these things were causing that stress response to just elevate. And did they teach you breathing in the military? Did they teach you that Foursquare breathing?
Believe it or not, they didn't. What they did do, though, was push us so hard in recruit training and officer candidate school, where you basically are, you've got to perform, 2, 3, 4 days straight sleep deprivation. And it's interesting. I don't think we ever took a yoga class. We didn't do a meditation class, but there's such a focus on being present in self-leadership and self-improvement and discipline that it just kind of naturally happens.
Well, and I think, many of us don't think about these things. And when you're under stress, like one of the things I do, like I can always tell when I'm under stress because I get like, it looks like I like put all this makeup on my face. I get like bright red cheeks and I'm like, all I have to do is catch a glimpse of myself. And I'm like, okay, you got to slow it down. You got to slow down your breathing. You got to take a minute, because when we get ourselves under control in a stressful situation, we can become so much more effective. Now, I was trained as a lifeguard. I was a lifeguard in high school and college, and keeping your freak down was a big part of it. I remember a guy came in and there was like this bone sticking out of his leg, and I'm like, don't worry, you're going to be fine. We got it all covered. Everything's going to be okay. Now, internally, I was like, oh my God, is that a bone sticking out? But you can't go there. And I think a lot of these careers that prepare you for a first responder or police or military, they teach us these things, but they're really, really effective in business.
They're absolutely effective in business because, one of the biggest challenges in business, I think, for people who are, entrepreneurial spirit is that they let the opinions of other people, stop them. It's what we would, call approval addiction. Now, approval addiction, I think, stops more people in their tracks from, going after their dreams, shooting for the stars, really achieving their goals. But if you had more confidence in yourself, if you had, faced some adversity, if you had, had a little bit more mastery in public speaking or sales or marketing, or you had, achieved some level of competency, you wouldn't care what people thought, right? You would go for it anyway. It's nice if people support you, but it's not required, right? And I think to get to that level of mental toughness in business, it's because you have achieved, you have hit your milestones, you've hit your goals, you've hit your quota, you've taken the extra courses, you've done presentations, you've done speeches. And then when it's your opportunity to really shine or take on a new project or even start a business, you've got the skills, and most importantly, you've got the confidence to go for it. And even if you don't have the skills, you know the people to go ask, right? You know how to go do the research and bring it in, and you make what seems impossible very possible and also successful.
Well, and I want to throw in there's also want. Scott, when I take on a project, if I don't want to do it, if there's not some driving force inside of me, then it's a lot more work for me to be mission focused, self-directed than it is when I want something. When I first moved out to California, and, I came from a little small town, and there was only one mafia guy on our street that had a Mercedes. Well, I wanted a Lexus. I was going to get a Lexus. And no matter what got in my way, I went around it, I went over it, I went under it, whatever it was, I went for it because that's what I wanted. And I think a lot of times people choose professions or make choices because they feel safe. But when they do that, they cheat themselves of that want, of that goal, that desire.
So this is where I'm going to drop on some of my martial arts background. I've been competing and practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for 8.5 years. And I'm a senior purple belt, getting ready to be promoted to brown belt. I just competed at the Masters World Championships World Championships in Las Vegas. I probably compete 4 or 5 times a year, and four times a week, maybe 5 times if I'm lucky, depending on my schedule and if I'm traveling. But here's the point. To dedicate yourself to something for the long term, to have that big picture perspective. One of the things that we do when we compete and when we train hard against other people in our sport is that we don't focus on winning. I'm not there to prove anything. What I am there to do is improve incrementally, right? So I know if I put in the hard work, if I do if I'm present, if I'm doing the right drills, if I'm doing the extra training, the extra research, I'm eating correctly, I'm doing the weight, whatever it is, I'm doing the extra preparation, I know the results are going to come. They have to, right? And that's a very liberating perspective to live in life. So even if I get temporarily knocked down, as you say, or I have some adversity, or even, the outcome doesn't go the way that I want, I don't call it a failure. I say, did I improve? And I know if I improved and I stay at it and I stay focused and I persist, right? Persistence is the number one quality of success. More than anything else, it's number one. If I do that, I'm going to get the results. I'm going to get the medals. I'm going to get the championships. I'm going to perform at the highest levels. And I think that's a very healthy way to be, as opposed to giving up at the first sign of adversity or failure or catastrophe.
Well, and I think it's okay to give up for like 15 minutes. Like sometimes I'll set my iPad or my iPhone, and if I have a setback, I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not gonna, and I'll give myself like 15 minutes. I'll go jump in the pool and swim a little bit and, get all those feelings out, because I'm not a good feeling stuffer. The feelings have to go somewhere. And feelings, I want to talk about this next segment about feelings, because feelings aren't really real. They exist, they happen, they're a response, but, they change so frequently. I think somewhere I read, especially like a woman, she can change her feelings on a certain topic like 11 times in 4 hours. So I've learned
you've been to my house? Were you taking notes?
Well, but it's important to know that, because I think a lot of women, especially women in business, and maybe guys too, I can't speak for them, but they are like, oh, well, I don't like this, or this person makes me mad, or I feel this about something. Most often than not, Scott, I have no feelings about the tech stuff I'm producing. Like, the feelings just get in my way. The feelings slow me down. If I'm uncomfortable with something, that's different. But, because I don't want to work in arenas where I'm uncomfortable. But feelings, by and large, get us into more trouble in business than probably anything else. We're going to talk about feelings when we get back from the break. We'll be back after these messages.
Lead foot? According to state troopers, here's what not to do when you get pulled over. Don't be a lachrymous and start crying right away. It doesn't help. But if you're under 20, crying won't be held against you. Don't ask for a break, and don't yell or start any argy-bargy. And one trooper said, if they're going to flirt with me to get out of a ticket, it would probably insult my intelligence. But unfortunately, I don't get hit on all that often. So flirting or being a gill flirt won't work. Did you know that 15% of all drivers get 76% of all traffic tickets? And the odds of winning if you challenge a traffic ticket in court are 1 in 3. So what should you do when you get pulled over for speeding? Be courteous to the officer, and most of all, be honest.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
Sodium intake can be problematic because most Americans have way too much. The recommended sodium intake is 2,300 milligrams a day, but the average intake in the U.S. is 3,400 milligrams a day. Sodium attracts fluid, and too much leads to hypertension, which raises your chances of having a stroke, heart failure or heart attack, and kidney disease. Table salt is definitely a culprit of high sodium intake, but there are other seemingly unseen ways to take sodium in. Sports drinks, energy drinks, and sodas all have high sodium levels. Macaroni and cheese, seasoned rice, and other boxed meals contain high amounts of sodium, along with processed meats, especially if they have been cured, smoked, or canned. Restaurant food is also a huge offender. Eating fresh food at home is your best offense. I'm Annette Hammond.
Taking care of business every day. Taking care of business every way. Taking care of business. It's all mine. Taking care of business. Working overtime. Woo! Taking care of business.
guys and dolls. This is Sandra Beck, and I'm here with Scott Lopez, and we are talking today about mental toughness, mental fitness. And Scott, I want to talk about feelings because you've got a household full of feelings. You got a lot of girls in your household. I'm full of guys. I got 2 kids, my dad, my uncle Gary, and my brother staying with me at a regular interval. So I'm surrounded by guys who I know they have feelings, but if they have feelings about like my laundry, my cooking or whatever, they're smart enough not to say anything to me or they won't be eating tomorrow. But feelings are an interesting thing because intuition, hunches, a feeling, those are all very good intuitive tools for business, but there's also the negative feelings that can really impede what you're trying to do in your business.
I think it's all situationally dependent, right? One of the things that's very important is understanding composure and bearing and applying emotional intelligence, right? Knowing yourself and also knowing the situation that you're in the group dynamics. So what are you trying to accomplish? I mean, I don't think at any time does, quote unquote, losing your bearing, losing your composure, throwing a temper tantrum, getting too emotionally excited or getting too emotionally depressed is going to help anybody. I think what I've seen in life is maintain an even keel. Right? Handle yourself with grace and dignity, no matter how bad it gets. Be a good loser, and also be a very gracious and humble winner. But I think it's really, the concept of bearing and composure will help you keep a clear and level head, and also keeps the respect of those around you.
Well, and I think it makes it really hard. Everybody's had the hysterical boss or the chicken little boss, who's like the sky is falling, at every turn. And I think it comes down to personal choice. And one of the things that I found, especially with raising kids, running a company, trying to do all this stuff on my own, is if I don't have outlets for my emotions, outlets for my feelings, like I'm done, Scott. I'm dead in the water. I have a therapist I go every Thursday night for an hour. I can talk to her about parenting issues, about company issues, client issues. When you don't have a spouse or your spouse isn't available for this, I need somebody, who's kind of a coach / therapist to bounce ideas off because I'm wrong a lot and I don't have the right information or I'm not asking the right questions. And, I go to the gym every day. If I don't go to the gym every day, everyone in my house knows it because thoughts have energy, feelings have energy. That energy's got to go somewhere. And if it doesn't, what it can't do is it can't go into my dad, it can't go into my kids, it can't go into my staff. Like it's about setting up all these little, I don't know what they are. I feel like, Fred Flintstone, remember when the Flintstones were little and he would go and he would pull that thing at the end of the day and it would go, whoa! If I don't have a relief valve put up in place for my busy lifestyle, I'm no good to anybody.
Well, I think you're absolutely to be commended, right? I mean, you know yourself, you know that you need certain support and coping mechanisms, and you go out and you make it happen, right? You take care of yourself. How can you take care of others? How can you perform at your highest if you're not taking care of yourself first, right? I think that's a very important tenet of life and of high-achieving, high-performing people that operate under a lot of pressure. You have got to take care of yourself. Now, that's all relative for each person, right? It could be some people need to go shopping, some people need to go to the beach, some people need to go to the gym, some people need to get massages. I'm not here to judge, but I think taking care of yourself physically, mentally, financially, emotionally, spiritually, and even sexually, right? I mean, there's a lot of pressure and tension that can be built up in that regard as well. Taking care of yourself individually in a healthy way allows you to be at your best in all these other situations. And congratulations to you, Sandra, for knowing what works for you and what doesn't. I mean, especially if you're a single parent, you're an entrepreneur, you've got that support, you've created that support system, and I think it's great. I think it's, a therapist is outstanding, and I think a therapist is also, or a counselor is a very safe way to deal with things without, being around people or opening yourself up to people that may have motives, right? So,
well, absolutely. The key of all this.
Yeah, it may not have your best interest at heart.
Right. And the key of all this is safety. I've got to create a safe environment for where, I can create these things. And Scott, I wish I could tell everybody that it, was so beautiful. I just woke up one morning and scheduled all these things. But, in reality, when my mom died, I didn't have anyone in place that I could ask the mom questions to. So that's where my, kind of coach/therapist really came to light. And I didn't get regular massages and take care of myself until my hair started to fall out. A couple of years ago, I was like, oh my gosh, like, what is all this hair in my hairbrush? Like, this is crazy. And it took that moment for me to go, I will end up bald with the lifestyle I'm living if I don't make some changes. And it was a team effort. I talked to my staff, I talked to my friends, I talked to my family. And I needed help figuring out what I needed because I had spent 20 years of my life catering to what everybody else needed. And if you had asked me what my favorite soda was, I couldn't even tell you, but I could rattle off everybody in my sphere of influence, what their likes and preferences were. And that was something that I had to learn the hard way. But once you get it, you realize that it's necessary and you don't have to feel guilty about it.
Well, again, high-performing and high-achieving people such as you and a lot of people that are listening to the show realize they can't do it alone, that they've got to build an infrastructure around them. And if you look at, again, high-performing actors, musicians, CEOs, athletes, what do? They all have coaches and advisors around them. They create a support structure so they can perform at their best. So they have the best lawyers, the best CPAs, they do their training. They have people that help them with diet. And I think each person has the ability to do that for themselves. And, take that attitude of, I need to be at my best, therefore I need to create an environment and protect that environment at all costs, physically, emotionally, materially, whatever, that's going to allow me to perform at the highest levels. And why do we want to perform at the highest levels? Ultimately, so we can have two things. Better and happiness, right? People want better than their current situation in all ways, and ultimately, we just want to be happy. So we owe it upon ourselves, I think, to have that understanding and that self-awareness that you had to go through, and then create that environment that allows you to be at your best and serve at a higher level and do more and achieve.
Well, and I think one of the things is knowing what makes you happy. Like, I like to be outside, so my environment is conducive for me to work outside a lot. I love my pool. Now, I don't need 10 swimming pools, so, one swimming pool is enough for me. But getting down deep and dirty with what makes you happy, with what you enjoy. I enjoy my dogs. They make me happy. I know no one can make you happy, but they're like, happiness, enhancers. I like to have my friends around. I like to have a house where people can come in and sit down and get something out of the fridge and if they break something, oh well. Knowing what makes you happy, I think, is really important in creating your success model, because I was wildly successful before this, but I was probably the most unhappy woman you would ever meet. I was depleted. Everything was going out. Nothing was coming in. I had 4 cars, 3 houses, 2 kids, a husband, and I don't know, I can't remember, I think 2 or 3 companies at the time. I mean, I could not even breathe, and there was no time to enjoy all that I had, and I never want to go back there. Like, I never want to live like that again. I was never as lonely and unhappy as I was the last time at the peak of my career.
So, again, this goes back to this idea of emotional intelligence. Knowing yourself, knowing where you're at your best, knowing where you can have self-improvement. I think one of the most interesting concepts is the concept of the ignorant unconscious person and the ignorant unconscious person. And what does that mean? That means people who are ignorant and they're unconscious means they don't know what they don't know, right? You can't even coach them. They don't have the self-awareness. They don't have the consciousness. They don't know what they don't know. So you can't really talk to them, and they're not going to evolve. They're not going to grow. But if you're ignorant and you're conscious of that, then what that means is you know that there's something you don't know. Like, wow, I'm not getting the results that I want. I'm stressed out. I am getting certain material achievements, but my life is, I'm running right into the ground and I'm burning out. That's a conscious, ignorant person. Like, I'm doing something wrong. I need to try new tactics, new strategies. I need to adjust. I need to make changes. That's very, very, very healthy, extremely healthy. And again, you're to be congratulated for recognizing that, making the adjustment, and then moving on, so you can achieve your goals and you can grow your life and continue to evolve and take it to the next level, which is what I think that's what mental toughness is all about.
Well, and I think, Scott, I had the vision of wealth that a lot of farm kids did. Like, if you just had X, Y, and Z, you would be happy. If you just had, L, M, and N, your life would be easier. And to be fair, life is easier with money than without, if you use it properly. But, in creating success and creating your mental toughness, there has to be room for everything. I like what you said about the mind, the body, the spirit, all those different connections have to be put into your success model. We're going to talk when we get back from the break more about what does happiness looks like? What does success look like? And I know that everybody's different and everybody has different things, but there are certain universal elements that resonate with all human beings. Now, we're visiting today with Scott Lopez. He has a show coming up in September. You're going to want to check it out. It's called Disruptive Investor Radio. Scott, what days does it air?
It's going to be Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Pacific.
All right, so you're going to want to check that out on toginet.com. You also can find it at disruptiveinvestorradio.com. We'll be back after the break.
Welcome to Geraldine Tegelov Live, the show that shares with you the secrets of redefining, reinventing, and rebuilding your life. Having pulled herself from the rubble of financial ruin and having gone on to create a highly successful career, Geraldine has become an expert in the art of transformation. She believes that it doesn't matter where you are right now, how overwhelmed you feel, or how impossible the task of turning your life around may seem. You can do it. Stay tuned as metaphysician, international best-selling author, and intuitive Geraldine Tegelov gives you the inner understanding and the outer practical how-to to create your amazing life. Gain a fresh perspective on how to redefine, reinvent, and rebuild your life. Join Geraldine Tegelov live every Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on the TogiNet Radio Network. This is the TogiNet Radio Network, radio with a cutting edge.
It's words you never heard.
Have you ever found yourself on an airplane seated next to a nonstop talker that you really don't have anything at all in common with? When I fly, I usually want to catch up on my reading and not have to listen to an explatterator. It's even worse if they're a philodox. That's a person who just loves their own opinion. Well, now a Facebook app lets you choose your own seatmate before you fly. According to an article in USA Today, social media startups are bringing together compatible flyers before they take their seats. That's good news for people lovers, otherwise known as philodemics. A number of apps such as Planely and Satisfy are helping travelers meet not only online, but in person. Think the Match.com of travel. I love flying and have been to almost as many places as my luggage.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
Taking care of business every day. Taking care of business every way. Taking care of business. It's all mine. Taking care of business.
guys and dolls. This is Sandra Beck, and I'm here with Scott Lopez, and we are talking today about success. What does success look like? And Scott, I've been to a bunch of seminars. I've even run these seminars where people make vision boards, and they're all about things, and the things that people want: a watch, a vacation home, and I'm not dogging any of these things. I want them all myself, but I know after my first iteration of success that that's not going to fulfill me. Having all these things and not having the right person to share it with, not having kids to share it with. I realized when I was home in New York at my dad's place that our lake house is beautiful. Don't get me wrong. It's gorgeous and it's wonderful. It's got all the things everybody would want, but the house sings when my aunts and uncles were there. My nieces and nephews were there, and it was messy and it was loud and it was crazy. And there's a kayak going this way and a sailboat going that way and a kid doing cannonballs off of here. It was never more joyful for me. And I realized that wealth and affluence without heart is really empty.
So Harvey Ecker, The Millionaire Mind, he's got a very interesting thought on this one that resonates with me. In the areas of life where money works, it works really well, right? I mean, money provides financial options and freedom. So if you want to have a nice house, you want the material things in life, healthcare, nice car, going out to dinners, going on vacations, that's all great, right? It's fantastic. And I think those are all worthy goals. And I think like the more money you have, especially if you take it to multiple millions or hundreds of millions or even billionaire. I live in Newport Beach, California, where we've got more billionaires and 100 millionaires running around than you can shake a stick at. A lot of money allows you to make a huge impact, which is important to me, right? You can have a bigger platform. So in the areas of life where money works, it works incredibly well. And I'll take it one step further. I don't think we're meant to be on the planet and suffer and be in scarcity and fear and live paycheck to paycheck. I mean, it's unnecessary. There's more than enough money and wealth and opportunity for all of us, right? All both rise together, and we can definitely get into that more later. That being said, in the areas of life where money doesn't work, it doesn't work at all, right? It doesn't help you with your relationships with your family. It doesn't help you, with your self-confidence and self-esteem. It doesn't help you spiritually. So I think understanding where money works in the right places, how you can make a difference in other people's lives and give back to charities or create something that makes an impact on a mass level, and where it doesn't. I mean, I just love how you said you got your greatest happiness from having a house full of kids and swimming pools and just that family interaction. I think we can all relate to that. But it's just as nice to take those same people on a vacation or give them a really good steak dinner as well, and you have enough money to do that.
That's true, right. I mean, because it kind of goes hand in hand. But I am going to tell you something funny, and and this, you judge away anybody who's listening. But when I was first divorced, I had written a check to get myself out of my marriage. It's like done and done. No ongoing payments, no anything. I drained the cash dry. And when I went out into the dating arena for the first time, I was walking around going, I am not worthy. I am not worthy. And then I put a big deal together, and then I had a bunch of money in the bank. And, Scott, right, wrong, good, bad, indifferent, I was walking a different walk. And, I know that money shouldn't be tied to self-esteem and self-concept, but the reality is, when I was walking this planet stone cold broke, I felt different than when I walk around with a little money in the bank. And I, right, wrong, or, good, bad, it's just, I recognize that in myself. I know if I have a certain amount of money in the bank, I sleep better. I know certain basic needs will be met. I don't fret as much. I still work really hard. I still show up and give 100%. But there was something in me that feels secure, or I don't know what the word is.
Well, you just said it. You're secure. There's nothing worse than having financial pressure on top of you. Like, where's the next paycheck going to come from? Who's going to take care of the kids? Who's going to take care of the, just everyday necessities of life? And that's not what we're supposed to be about. In today's society, we live in the most affluent society in the world. Here in the U.S., our quality of life is really high. So if you're not making it, it's because there's something you don't know. You just need the knowledge and the mindset, right? That's really, that's really something that I feel super strong about, is that wealth mindset. So I love money. I think money's great, but I also know that it only works well in certain situations, and it doesn't help me with my relationships with my daughters. It doesn't help me in a lot of situations of life. But
my dog does not love me.
I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I mean, my dog does not love me any more or less. I'd like to say my kids.
Your dog doesn't love you. Now that's a good one.
Well, but yeah, I mean, but it's true. I mean, it's so funny. Like, every once in a while, when I come back from home, I go from like rural upstate or Western New York, come back to California, which is so crazy affluent, so crazy everything, and I realize though, there's so many lessons in nature. Like, yeah, my dog does not love me any more or less. But the other thing that I learned when I was home, Scott, and I know this is going to sound really like kind of hokey, but a tree, as far as I know, does not worry in the morning when he gets up. He doesn't worry if the sun's going to shine. He doesn't worry if he's going to get enough water. I was walking through these cornfields and walking through the soybean fields, and I just kept looking at plant after plant after plant, and I thought, I'm one of these plants. And then there was like the one corn stalk that grew up out of the middle of the cornfield. Like, he didn't know he was supposed to be a soybean plant, and that was me. But he was reaching towards the sun, and he wasn't worried at all that he was a stalk of corn in the middle of a soybean field. And if you've ever seen this, it's pretty obvious. It's like soybeans grow like 2 feet high, a corn will grow 6-7 feet high. So I kept looking at that one corn stalk that was growing in the middle of nowhere, and I thought, that's me. And he's not worried about everything. He's focusing on what he needs to do today, which is grow.
Right.
Have I given you enough redneck analogies today?
Soybeans, I'm not really tracking, but I think I know where you're going with it.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people out there that are rednecks like me. They'll know what that means.
I'm just kidding with you. Again, in the areas of life where money works, it works really well. And I think it's something to be celebrated, and I think it's a worthy goal. But I think we just need to keep it balanced. I don't think we need to demonize rich people. I don't think we should demonize the wealthy. I think, I look at today's current political environment, and I think we're in a time of class warfare, and it's destructive. It doesn't help anybody, right? I mean, what we really ought to be focusing on is helping everybody make more money, and help everybody be more wealthy, and help everybody make it on their own and feel that improve their own standard of living, and give back and feel good and make a difference. And the financial opportunities and the financial independence will be there if people have the right mindset. So I feel really strongly about that, and we'll be talking about that on my radio show. But that, to me, that's what happiness is. Happiness is not having the financial pressure on your back. It's using all of your God-given abilities and talents to help and serve other people. It's making a difference. So to me, that's what happiness is.
Well, that's the thing about that economic power. You can make a big difference. In my heyday, I was buying, 1,000 backpacks for homeless and foster care kids. And that was a really good feeling. Now, I can't buy as many as I did then, but I still buy what I can. But that economic power you get to change somebody's life, to give them something, there's no better feeling than when you can make a difference. And you need to have that as part of your success model. There needs to be some sort of give back, some sort of philanthropy, something that, you look at the end of the day and say, hey, I did that. Like, I remember a bunch of kids had sneakers because of me, that was a big deal for me. The truck pulls up, all these kids line up and they're all, everything's ratty and they get these new sneakers or gym shoes. I don't know what they call them out here. But that's a memory that I will take away forever. And, you couldn't pay me enough money, Scott, for that moment.
It's amazing, right? I mean, when we look at, again, I study the affluent and I do a lot of research and read a lot of books on wealthy people. The number one thing that motivates wealthy people, the really super rich, it's not making more money. It's not having more stuff. You know what it is? It's legacy. It's their family. It's making a difference. It's giving back. What are they going to be known for? And so when we think of you, Sandra, and you have examples like that, it's going to be your legacy. You're known, and you have a legacy of giving back and volunteering and making a difference and being selfless. That's an amazing legacy.
And there's nothing like it. There is nothing like it.
Right, and money can't help you with that, right? I mean, it's better to go out there and do all that work than just cut a check and say, oh, well, I just donated to whatever, but to actually be there and meet the people, see the emotion, the gratitude, the difference in real time, that's amazing. And that's selfless, and it's from the heart, and that's what it's all about.
Well, it's the juice. If you're struggling right now to get yourself back to work or to do your best, go out and do something like that. Because when you see what your hard work can do, and you can see what a difference your dollar makes, not just writing a check, sticking it in an envelope and saying sayonara. I mean, actually looking at the difference, you will come back energized, reinvigorated, just jonesing to do more to make a bigger difference than you did before. I mean, that's it. I can't leave you with anything better than that. Scott Lopez, Disruptive Investor Radio. Check it out. We will be back again next week with more great information on thought leaders like Scott Lopez. Scott, how can people reach you?
It's real simple, www.disruptiveinvestorradio.com. All the information is there. It's been a pleasure. I wish everybody a great day today and always, no matter when you hear this.
All right. We'll be back again next week.
Thank you for listening. On behalf of Sandra Beck, we want you to get out there today to make more money with less time and effort so you can live the life you want. Tune in next week for more tips, tricks, and techniques on Coach Talk Radio.